that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello, everybody. Trying to be nervous for a third time, but I think less so because I think it's gonna be okay. I've gone 3 in, and I've so far not upset or offended the author, which I'm quite proud of or happy about, I should say. I don't never want to do that. So, anyway, here we are with Book 3 of the Edan Trilogy by Philip Chase. Return to Edan. And I do indeed have a physical copy. Now, I made a video months back. And in case you missed that, when I started uploading these videos, of course I had them unlisted at the time because I schedule my videos ahead of time. So I sent him the first video. He responded. He was kind enough to respond, and same with the second one. So here we are with the third one. But after that second book review, he had said after the first one, actually, that he was going to send me these for free with no obligation to actually review them, just so long as, if I did, I gave my honest thoughts and opinions. So this finally came in, a little bit back. So it came right around the time I finished the second one. So when it came to start book 3, I had a physical copy to read. It's quite a beautiful cover, ain't it? That's Saren, by the way. We'll get to her character when we start the book, when we start discussing it. But it was so utterly kind of him. And of course I'm biased. The guy gave me 3 books for free. Like, I can't not be biased. And I've already been a fan of him before, as I said in the previous 2 reviews. But I have to state that this series is still fantastic. I would say so even if I didn't know him. Like, if I never watched a YouTube video of his or anything. Or, if I thought this myself, which I plan on doing, then I would still give my honest thoughts. I'm not, I'm never going to lie about my thoughts, because it's not like I have a career on this anyway. I'm doing this for fun, so it really doesn't matter. But, of course, I like the guy, so I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be mean. So there's some complications that come with reviewing something where you semi-know the person. Sorry, I got my drink. That is to say, though, that this conclusion, it honestly might be my favorite of the 3. Now, I did listen to interviews and discussions of this book. I do think you can feel a bit of a vibe, because this one was actually written after Philip Chase, because before I don't think Philip Chase had read them himself yet, but as of this book's writing, he had been reading Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson, and I feel you can kind of feel that a little bit in there. Not saying that was his intention, but I do think there's a little bit of that bleeding through. But I really enjoyed this. I think it's a solid conclusion, and not one you'd really, like, what happens after the end, right? Because the second book is typically where these sort of stories end. It's the return of the king. But what happens after? So we kind of get to see that. And Day Raven has been such an interesting character, from this reluctant man to becoming what he needs to be, to losing himself in this sort of deity of the elf shard, and then Suquar's whole arc, and Orvandil and Norn, to introducing an entirely new character in the last book, though of course it is connected to other things, but showing darkness of humanity, but also showing the complexity within. You think of Archenwald, I kind of call him two-dimensional, and to an extent I think that still holds true. He's definitely the most... He has the least redeeming qualities out of most of these characters. But even he has nuance. Even he has grace. even he has mourning and regret over things he's done, whether forced upon or not. Uriman, who again is kind of just as zealous as Bledlow, which I think is the greatest irony of all. He claims to be this intellectual thinker, this holier than thou in a sense. He wants to be this great savior of humanity. He wants to make it so that death may hold no barrier over any of us, that we can live forever. Not to mention the logistical nightmare of how do you make sure the economy stays afloat, everybody's fed, this, that, and that. I mean, I guess if you're immortal, do you need to eat? I don't know. I don't know how that would all function. But he has this grand goal, this great heaven state, in a sense, this great utopia. But the thing about living on Earth, and I think this is pretty much shown by the end of this book, Malazan does this too, there's no such thing as utopia. Not in this life. Perhaps in another life. I mean, I definitely believe if everyone were to put their differences aside, if we were to truly work together, if we were to not act like ourselves, then perhaps we could come to a better world. Not a perfect world. Better one. I would say so long as humans exist, evil shall exist. I do not think there is a world. Star Trek is a funny franchise, and depending on the show you're watching, you're going to get a different perspective. But Gene Roddenberry was a hardcore atheist, and he was very much that the future will have no God, the future will have no spirituality, and the future will be better because there'll be none of those stupid religious people, their stupid religious thoughts. We will be enlightened, we will be better, we will have utopia. Nobody will starve, we'll have replicators. Money doesn't matter. It's perfect now. The only problems come from the stars. I never really bought into that. As you can tell, if you could tell, because I love Malazan and I love this trilogy, that I think it's pretty easy to recognize if you know what I'm even talking about. You might not know what Star Trek it is at all, but Deep Space Nine is my favorite. And that doesn't really matter if you don't know what that is, if you don't care about Star Trek. The point is that is a bit more nuanced on its perspective of humanity. And that regardless of religion or not, it's not going to be perfect. And I think that's the ultimate truth. You still gain that from this as well. But it is a hopeful thing of we can be better. But I never think we will outgrow our nature completely. But we would love to have it, wouldn't we? This sort of perfection, this sort of happiness for everyone, this heaven, essentially. But I think even when I say, were we all to put our differences aside and come together, when I say stuff like that, and I'm giving no opinion of mine, because my opinion on stuff doesn't matter. I'm here to talk about books. But what I do think is telling and a problem, whatever aisle you feel is erring, wrongly, believing wrong, doing evil, whatever you believe that to be. I don't really care what you feel. Don't tell me. I don't care. But whatever you feel, you're thinking of someone or a group of people or an organization or a political leaning. It was like, yeah, if we just didn't have them, if we didn't have this, if we didn't have religion, if we didn't have atheists, if we didn't have this, if we didn't have that, it could really be perfect. But the reality is, people that don't agree with us are always going to exist. Right? So, the way forward, in my mind, it's this wonderful word. It's called compromise. Because in reality, you're never going to have everyone that agrees with you, that believes what you believe 100%. It just doesn't exist. It will never exist. Humanity, from the beginning of time, has shown that it is not possible to be the case. I wish it was, but it's not the reality. So the best case is compromise. And this is not me on a soapbox. I'm just speaking what has come to my mind as I finish this trilogy. And it is also easy to get nihilistic, to kind of be like the elf, who doesn't really care one way or the other. The elf is kind of neutral. He's not nihilistic at all, but I mean in the sense that maybe it'd be better if we just all burned and died. Maybe it'd be better if the universe started again. Maybe a better example, if you know the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thanos. Let's take out half of all civilization. We'll make the world a better place then. Let's start from scratch. Thereon and so forth. But is that the best way to go about it either? Did we destroy everything we are? Did we obliterate all of humanity so that some other race could potentially make things better in the future? Assuming they were to even evolve to do that? I don't know. You're asking two big questions for a guy that never went to college and is not the sharpest tool in the shed. I do fancy myself a bit above average in intelligence. That's not to be prideful. I just know myself, know that I think too much and is actually detriment. Because I wish I could be out of this head for a while. I wish I could just exist in the moment and not worry about the future, which this book also addresses not doing so. All that to say, I'm trying to by saying all this stuff, I'm trying to get through some themes without explicitly saying anything. But Yurman, I think, is a fantastic character. I really, truly, I liked him a lot in 1. He kind of went to the wayside in 2. But as a consistent through line in these 3 books, I think Yurman is one of the most, or German, or however you pronounce it, I think he's one of the most fascinating characters in this trilogy. And I love Dayraven. His devotion, his kindness, his empathy. We could all learn from Dayraven. I try so hard, when I'm reading fiction or in reality, to understand everyone's point of views, to never allow myself to think I know better, necessarily. There are certainly things I'm confident about, but I always love to hear people out if they're genuinely having a conversation. I don't want to be yelled at. I don't want to be preached to. But I do love talking to people. Because I'm not everyone, and everyone has a perspective. But we are all one. Or so these books would have you believe. There are some things that I, as a worldview, do not necessarily reciprocate with this series kind of tries to say. But the overall message and theme of it kind of works regardless of your worldview, whether you believe that we are all one and connected by this great force or the great Edan, right? Or whether we are made in something's image, regardless of that, or whether it's just that we are all a family because we were all created by this random cosmic universe that just, whatever you believe that makes you go, we should all be connected and together, still works with the whole message there. I just don't necessarily agree that we are all God, and because we're a part of the universe. I'm trying not to spoil anything. But this does take place after the second book. We meet a new character named Saren as her family has stuff happen to her. We catch up on Dayraven, who isn't exactly Dayraven anymore. He's a mix between the elf and Dayraven, as he has white hair now, and he is the prophet of Edan, healing people, doing miracles, gaining a following, much like Jesus of Nazareth, or pick your poison there, but very similar to that. We have Sequara dealing with the fallout of everything else, dealing with certain biological things that I will wait for spoilers, almost spoiled it, and dealing with her rage. To Orvindil and Norn, they're not as important, but I still love that they're there. It's many other things going on. I'm quite a fan of this book. This is probably my favorite of the trilogy. It is a toss-up on whether or not I like Way of Edan more than Prophet of Edan. But I'm probably going to say it goes 3, 2, 1 in my mind. I think every book has just been a step up in terms of quality. And so I have said almost nothing about the book, I feel. But I hope I've kind of given you some sort of impression of tone, a theme that you should feel going through this. I don't know. But rest assured, I mean, if you've read the last two, you should read this finale. I think it is well worth your time. It's a good book. Like, I'm telling you, like, if I didn't know this guy, I would still say it, okay? I know I'm biased, but it's a good book. Probably it is my favorite that Philip Chase has done so far. It's so good. It's so good. I mean, I will still say, and if you want me to pick a nitpick, my nitpick from the previous two about the exposition, I honestly did not feel that as much this time around. So there you go, something better. So I didn't feel that anymore. I appreciate that pros are above average. I feel, I think they're like above Esselmon's, but it's still, if you want to find something, it is certainly not. I haven't read Baker yet, but I hear he has great prose. Or Steven Erickson, so on and so forth. It is not phenomenal prose, but it is good prose. It's, if Erickson and some of those others are S's, then he's an A. But that's like really looking for a nitpick or to say something, because I honestly, I don't really have any flaws with this one, if I'm being honest. I mean, the ending might be different than you were expecting it to go, maybe, but I think it works really well for this story, and at least threads hanging for more, which we are getting more. In fact, by the time this review is out, that book's probably out. Debating whether or not I've reviewed that earlier than this, maybe so. I don't know, but I'm telling you, if you read the first two and you enjoyed them, you might just love this one. That's my non-spoiler. I've wasted 60 minutes not talking about the book at all. I have 2 notebooks because this one I brought to the airport because I went to Arkansas to go visit a friend. Quillen Voss on YouTube, if you don't know him. So I got two books of notes here. I'm getting to some spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, then you should go read the book. It is well worth your time. And before I get into spoilers, because I know he'll be watching, I just want to say thank you so much for making these. I went into it reading it because I really liked your stuff, Philip. I really liked your videos. I really liked your personality. So I started to read it. But you have won me over in terms of being a writer. I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan of yours. I think you did splendid. Just a fantastic job. And I'm excited for that next book coming out. I'll be one of the first ones to buy it when it does. And it's been a pleasure to read it. I think this one especially, above the other two, has touched my heart more and made me think the most. And I didn't realize how much I loved a lot of these people until I read this one. I don't know if that makes sense. I liked all of them, but I really love them all now. So I'm excited to see where some of these characters may go in the future and what else this universe has in store for us. But anyway, gonna get into it. If you don't want it, there's the door. Alrighty. So, starting with, we have Oren, small village in Silharan. I don't know what I meant by this, but I said bliss for others. Bliss for others, terror and shame for the rest. I don't know what I meant by that. It was a while since I wrote that. I'll move on. Apologies. We also meet Len and Tobe, who are Saren's friends. We also meet Saren, a young girl in this book. So an uncomfortable thing also at the beginning of this book is threats of some sexual violence going on, which, I mean, I should be used to that by now in this book and in other books I read. This just seems to be a constant thing. We have Imraz and Elan, who are rebels to the Torlanders, Torlanders, and Elan is Saren's brother. There's also a thing mentioned beginning on where, and again, this is Saren's perspective, so I don't know how much that actually, I don't think it's actually true, But as far as Saren feels, she feels like her mother is super negative to her and was kinder to Alon, who isn't biologically her kid. Like, he comes from her dad's first lover. And so she feels like her mother never loved her as much as her older brother, who isn't even biologically hers. So that's how she feels. I don't think that's true based on what I've seen in this opening part of the book. Kolberga, instrument of vengeance for martyr Bledla. She goes to basically kill German because he feels like he usurped something that wasn't his. And so she goes to confront him, and Morcar betrays her because he went with her being like, oh yeah, I'm totally with you usurping him. And then we get this thing where Yuraman has finally figured out how to do it. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right. Yuraman. I was going to say Yuraman. It sounds good to me. But he figures out how to separate the gift from someone's soul. So he saps it away from Kolberga, and it goes into him, making him a more powerful, mage or whatever. Also, Scold and Munzel moment. Not much to say, except, some, Moving on. Yuraman has a phenomenal speech talking, I think, to Kolberga before he saps away her power. And it's just such a good discussion because he really doesn't see himself as a villain. He wants to make the world a better place. He's willing to make these sacrifices. He's not really sacrificing anything. Other people are being sacrificed for the sake of this grand utopia. But when you become so evil like this, what really is left to save of yourself when all is said is done? But I guess that's part of the sacrifice, is his soul being turned to darkness, all for the sake of this possible future. He still doesn't know with 100% certainty whether that's even possible. He just knows that being stronger will help achieve that. Orin talks to Sequara and Orvindil. I don't remember what they talked about, I'm going to be honest. But this is the problem with reading a 700-page book and not splitting it in half. You forget some stuff. Prince, what did I say? Rondon being looked after by Imhar. Because the king of, what was it? I'm forgetting now. Well, his dad is dead, so he's the next in line. Runan's dad is Bolch, right? And so that's why he's being watched over by Imhar. But Imhar and Rona are having a little bit of a romantic relationship. I wrote down this quote because it's a really good quote. Perhaps that's what grief is. Getting used to carrying the weight of another loss. Also, there are plagues killing people over where Saren lives, so that's not fun. Turned out to not be super duper relevant to the book, but I thought I'd still bring it up because that sucks. And then Arkenwald shows up to Saren's home. And he wants Saren's dad to tell him where his son is, because his son's a rebel and a traitor. But he doesn't know. And that doesn't matter to Arkenwald, so he kills him. And then Saren's mom, well, they first threatened to rape her, so Arkenwald does. But unfortunately for Arkenwald, this is more of a feisty woman than you're used to, and he gets his butt handed to him, which upsets him quite a big deal, hurts his ego quite a bit. And so he gives up on trying to rape her, and, she dies too. So Saren is now an orphan, as far as she's aware, alone, with no adults to take care of her. Bagsack becomes the next victim of German, but Bagsack remains alive. He just is kind of losing his mind, kind kind of becoming like a Gollum-like figure, you know, sort of like crazy and losing it, but he's still alive. The Alarsh decimates scores of men as they're trying to take over all of Sodharan. Sequara sees herself now as a weapon more than anything else. And she suffers when she goes to sleep. You know, in the moment she'll kill, she'll slaughter, but when she goes to bed, she sees all those faces, and that empathy hurts her deeply. She also gets reunited with Imhar, which is cool to see. The next big thing we learn is that Sequara is pregnant with Day's child and will be queen. There is a is there a reunion at this point? All I know is that Dayraven helps Saren. No, sorry, it's not Sequara. My bad, my note taking. Dayraven helps Saren, kind of adopts her as like this little sister. And again, Dayraven at this point is not himself. He's not the elf, but he's not himself. He's sort of this like in between state. He doesn't remember who he was prior to getting like this, you know, this white hair and being this prophet. But I think the goodness of Day remains within in terms of his compassion, his empathy, and his drive. Sort of the ideals that he stands for is kind of what has become him, as he has lost his memory, doesn't really recall who he is, doesn't really see himself as an individual anymore, really. The next thing is this whole sentiment that has been throughout the series. It's kind of really hard here. And again, this broadcast yourself. So the idea is that God is within us. God, whatever you want to call it, this life force, this, you know, the force like in Star Wars, that it penetrates all beings, it surrounds us, it penetrates us, is within us all. We are all God in a sense. We are all Edan. It's kind of the thing that is the big clincher in terms of what we are meant to gain from this universe, is that we are all one, so we are all God. We are all a part of the universe whence we came, and when we die, we will go back to the universe and still be God. God is the universe, however you want to put that, you know. That is sort of the idea. I have some pushback to that, but that is the idea that the book is overall going for. And because we are all God, because we are all one, we are meant to come together and love each other and find solutions, because when you hurt one, you hurt the other, because we all are connected. And it's that complication of, you know, we see ourselves as individuals and we hurt people and do this and we do that, but we're actually hurting ourselves in the process. And I think that still applies in reality, however you slice it. I just don't take the approach. I think it's flawed to consider ourselves. I think it's more metaphorical in a sense, but I just don't. No matter what your view is, I think it's a bit. I don't know, something about it, because of our history, because of who we are. It just feels wrong to think of us as anything divine with how we act. Even if it's in that simplest sense that we are a part of the universe, which is much bigger and grander than any of us. But I also think the same way that could also work is by simply knowing that we were all created, you know, and that we are all wonderful and all deserve. And again, that's what I'm saying. It all basically comes down to the same sort of thing, regardless of how you slice it. Regardless of, I mean, even in the book, I mean, there's different faiths and different beliefs of how that all works, but it ultimately is still the same conclusion that we all sort of matter in that scope. So I won't harp on that too much, but yeah. Politics, Urimin and Ethrold is... Urimin basically talks to Ethrold about, you know, if he were to become king, you know, assuming... because they basically plan on taking care of Archenwald after all this is taken care of, and how he should be next in charge, and kind of scheming, that sort of Game of Thrones politicking that happens behind the scenes. Of course, Urimin convinces Ethrold that he also believes in Edan and the way, and that, you know, simply, as everyone can see, Archenwald is not the one to be leading people. But it is a case of Yerman also just he thinks he's better than everyone, and he'll believe in some he'll preach some stupid thing if it means he gets what he wants. Um, Also, Yerman speculates that elves may be eternal, and some interesting insights that he gains from that and what that could mean for everybody else. I also like this little moment. It's just a little moment, but Norn misses Ilm, if you remember, which was his cousin back in book 1, and realizes what he always had. Because if you remember, him and his brother were quite depressed in that first book. I mean, they were mainly in that mercenary company to eventually die. That was kind of their goal because they feel like their whole life was meaningless and kind of over. But now that he's away from all that, he kind of realizes like how much he had and mourns it. Chapter 15. Hold on a second. Actually, oh boy, do I have time to do this? All right, 1 second. Unprofessional as it may be. Okie dokie. Hold on a second here. One moment. Might be a bit lengthy, but it's worth it. This is the parable of the two brothers that the Day Raven gives, and I really love it. There were two brothers. He began, and as thousands of faces looked up at him through the drizzle. He paused to allow Saren to speak in Odunic, and then further down the slope, there were others who would repeat the words in both tongues so that all could hear. They were twins, and their mother loved them both, but they were as different from each other as the sun is from the moon. The elder, who had preceded his brother from the womb by only a short space, was a great warrior. He was strong and fast, and he gained fame from his feats of arms. The younger, on the other hand, was a lover of music and lore. As much as folks admire the elder for his deeds, they love the younger for his gentleness and perception. They each loved the other in their own fashion, and they both loved their mother without reservation. There came a time when an illness carried away their mother to her death. The elder twin sank into grief, and folks said he became grim with his loss. The younger brother too mourned her, but in his own quiet way, for in his wisdom he knew that as hard as it was, death was right in the end. He reasoned that his mother had lived a long and prosperous life, and so rather than give in to despair, he celebrated that life. Yet the elder twin took it amiss, and reckoned his sibling did not love their mother as he should. He could not see there was more than one way to honor the mother in her memory, and resentment joined grief to eat at his heart. The mother had been a wealthy woman, and loving both her sons equally, she had arranged to divide her estate and pass half of it on to each of them. This satisfied the younger twin, but the elder spoke ill of his brother. Why should we weaken the family estate for the sake of one who loves his mother so little? I am the elder, and by right should all pass to me. So he told himself. And such thoughts took root and festered within him until one day he took his sword in hand and gathered his friends and came to his brother, whom he began to blame for his mother's death. With his blade pointed at his brother's throat, he claimed all of their mother's estate and told the younger he would either die or from that day become a slave. He justified this by saying the younger twin's response to their mother's death showed his evil character, and he convinced himself he believed these words when he said them. The younger twin chose slavery over death, not because he feared the latter, but because of what he foresaw. Brother, said he, what you do is wrong, but I will serve you lest you stain yourself with my death. That is a thing from which you could never cleanse yourself, and so, for years he served his brother without complaint. At first the elder brother took great satisfaction from seizing his twin shares of the estate. He saw himself as a great lord, and he even told himself that their mother would have wanted it that way. But as the years passed, as his victories and battles accumulated, what at first seemed a minor discontent grew until he could take no pleasure from anything. His life became a mockery, for though he gained praise for his power and wealth, he could never hold on to the brief happiness that came with each acquisition, and he perceived the praise as shallow and empty, mere wind. What aided him most, however, was how content his younger twin always seemed to be. Somehow, even in his state of slavery, he held on to his dignity. Not only that, but he performed every task he was given with diligence and care, thus frustrating the elder brother more since he could find no reason to chide or punish him. Finally, the elder twin decided to spy on his brother, hoping to catch him in some treacherous act, or at least find out why his lips always seemed on the edge of a knowing smile. And so it was that one evening, when it was time for the slaves to return to their sleeping quarters, he watched his brother in stealth, and saw him clasp some small object in his hand before smiling at it and returning it to his pocket. So, He has been stealing from me, he said to himself. He trailed his brother to the small chamber where he slept, all the while thinking of how he would give him the most lashes allowed under the law before the entire estate. After the younger twin entered his chamber, the elder burst in and said, "Now I've caught you. I know the reason for all your smirks. Turn out your pocket." The younger brother did as he was told, and put the object in his twin's outstretched hand. The elder looked down at a small battered tin whistle. "What is this?" said he. The younger twin gave him a gentle smile. "My mother gave it to me when we were children. It no longer works, but it has helped me to remember her. Keep it if you like." That was when the elder brother remembered the tin whistle and how he used to wince when his twin first learned it. Now he had practiced on it for years until he could play it with skill and grace. It had been his first musical instrument. Something broke in the elder twin there. He had hardened his heart for so long, but the memories of this tin whistle cracked it until it burst with all the regret and longing his actions had birthed, and he was no longer blind. He perceived how his younger twin had loved their mother, perhaps not in the way he had, but with a depth that could not be measured. Their grief over death was the same, and they faced the same darkness, but each faced it in his own way. He went down on his knees and begged his brother for forgiveness, and he promised to restore all that was his. And it was only from that day that the elder brother began to heal from the loss of his mother, for he had loved her much. But now he understood from his brother's eyes as well, and so he grew to love her even more. Just as the prophet finished his story, the sun sliced through a rent in the cloud and shimmered through the curtain of drizzle, transforming the droplets into a multitude of little jewels suspended in the air and brightening the whole hillside for a fleeting moment. A collective murmur rolled through the congregated people, and many of them looked up and smiled. He had healed them of their infirmities. He took their smiles as the greatest possible reward. Moreover, beyond the bliss and hope of this one day, he hoped they would hearken to the story. He did not tell them the elder brother was Torland, or that the younger brother was Kerguelen. Nor did he say their mother was their god or gods, Edan or Yoroma, Enghara, it mattered not. Perhaps they knew, perhaps they would figure it out. It would not do to say such things in too direct a fashion, but he trusted some would ponder the little tale, and if they pondered it enough, perhaps it would nudge them towards change. Though he was not so naive as to suppose it would happen with such sudden grace, or that all the terrible pain of Torland's occupation of Kerguelen could so easily be forgiven, perhaps he could push things a bit closer to the happy ending he had offered in his story. Such, at least, was his hope. And that was one of my favorite passages from the book. It is written superbly. It is an amazing parable. Not to rival Jesus or nothing, but definitely harkens to that sort of feel. And I loved it. I just loved it so much. It was brilliantly written, and I love that little story and that tale. And I think we can apply that to more than just Torland and Kerguelen. But I'll let you decide on that one. Day promises to, be there for Saren. Moving on to the second one. Day has a speech of love and empathy, though I did not write the chapter. And I remember it being a fantastic speech. Victory through empathy. King Arkenwald. Dayraven is reunited with Arkenwald and forces him to live through all the suffering he's caused. It's powerful stuff. German is also reunited with Dayraven. Elfway and Sequara have a tender conversation. Elfway has quite a big crush on Sequara, maybe even falling in love. And knows that it's not going to be reciprocated, but he still wishes to help. And I think many people can recognize that. But it was a nice scene between the two, of just a platonic friendship. It was nice. we learn that Saren is the niece of Imhar, that Saren's mom was the sister that Imhar had lost, which makes Imhar the uncle to Saren. Day and Yurman power toss. Yurman tries the same thing he's been trying all book on him, and Day consents, and the elf takes over Yurman. But Yurman is not Dayraven, and he almost immediately dies in the entire encounter, and then it's just the elf controlling the puppet corpse of Yurman. Arkenwald has been suffering throughout this entire time since having these memories of all the suffering he's caused. And I genuinely felt bad for him. I wanted to see reconciliation. And in his twisted mind, perhaps that's what he intended to do. But ultimately, a bit of his old self comes out near the end, which is disappointing. As the crowd of his own people, well, they have reasons for running away. But Arkenwald, I don't know what was going through his head, to be honest, but they beat him to death. And wow, Arkenwald is a terrible person. In the state that he was in, I did legitimately feel bad that they took him out that way. A simple hanging could have sufficed. The way he went out was a bit more brutal than that. And maybe he deserved it. I'm not one to really make that call. I'm not God. I'm not Philip Chase. But that is what happened. So he is no longer around. Day talks down the elf. Convinces the elf to just head back where everything began when the elf originally entered Day. But the elf says, look, I'll do as you asked, but if anybody gets in my way on the way over, they will die. Not because I hate them, not because I really care, but it's just how it has to be. This sort of natural chaos. Day and Sequara get a moment of tender love, as they've not seen each other in a while. But as we have Day protecting Munzel as the elf became Yurman, and the elf started killing a lot of the Alarsh, and the Alarsh ended up being possessed, an extension of the elf, and so it was left with only Munzel left as himself. And then you get this amazing bit of compassion and love, where Day is protecting Munzel because people are saying how he should be dead, and he says, hasn't he suffered enough? Sure, he killed people, sure, and Munzel also claims they weren't going to kill innocents, that was a rule. I believe him. But also, how much more can he possibly suffer? Everyone he's ever known and loved is gone, is dead. It's just Dayraven, man. And this is Dayraven post-elf in him. But it is the overwhelming compassion, loyalty, and empathy that this man has for people. It's inspiring. It's insane. We need more Dayravens in the world. Anyway, we return to the mark where everything began, and Dayraven tries to convince everyone, hey, get out. Let these people go through. But ultimately, they refuse. And he blames himself for it. And then after that, everybody decides to stand firm against it anyway. And then we lose Galdor and Dayraven. But in doing so, they did actually stop the elf, who I never saw as a villainous antagonist. It's more a force of nature. Sort of God's wrath without the love part. Which I suppose in a sense makes sense. But I think that's part of the flaw of this idea, I suppose, of this narrative with the elf and everything, is I think you need justice. You need sort of that seeing the evil of humanity, but also being able to promise them something better, which the elves don't do because they're more alien. They don't care about you. They're indifferent to you. They just see the suffering that you cause, and hey, the easiest solution is to get rid of you. But they do manage to win. But in the process, we lose Galdor and Araven. We end this series with Sequara kind of becoming queen, about to birth a child. We have Saren living with Imhar, now that, she realized that that's her uncle. Anything else moving forward? I mean, I guess we have to wait for the next book, which by the time this video is out, that book may be out already, but regardless, I have to wait for it till it comes out. And it might be funny, I might release that review before any of these come out, but I think this book is phenomenal. Really solid, really thought-provoking, really heart-wrenching. And like I said, I told everyone, first two books, I really didn't feel the love, the relationship between Sequara and Daeraven. And I finally had my heart, softened to it in this book, and I finally appreciated it and approved of it, despite everything. And it is sad to not have Daeraven anymore. He's been around since book 1, and it'll be interesting to see who I imagine Sequara would be the main character of book 4, but who knows? It could be Saren, it could be numerous people, it could be a new person entirely. I don't know. But I'm excited to see what happens then. And I really think, I think the big thing here is that we are humans, and we are imperfect, and we are flawed, and we shall always be flawed. We have to live on this earth together, and it really doesn't matter what you believe, one way or the other. But everybody's so quick, especially in 2025, aging the video like milk. But ever since 2018, 2019, whatever, 2016, more like, there's been this, at least in America, I can't speak to other countries, but there's this growing bad guy villain. And it happens with everyone. Everyone does it. And it's frustrating and annoying because people aren't like that. You read books, don't you? That's what we're doing here. Do you not go and read other people's perspectives, other people's motivations, other people's desires? Nobody is evil. There are some who are just truly the scum of the earth, or just truly pure evil that just should not exist on this planet anymore. They've caused too much harm. But how many people are actually like that? I'm going to tell you, it's probably less than 5% of the population. Most people are decent. Most people want to be kind. Most people want to be good. Circumstances may circumvent that. Horrible tragedies like death or rape may interfere with that. But at the end of the day, nobody is trying to be the villain. They're the protagonist of their own story, and most of them feel like they're side characters in their own narrative because they feel unseen or unheard. But we're all people. And if we could realize that, if we spend more time loving one another and understanding one another and not having to agree on everything, because guess what? That's okay. Maybe this world will be better. Maybe more people should read these books. Maybe more people should read Malazan Book of the Fall. Maybe more people should have conversations with people and not get into these needless wars and arguments and debates about how you're this incarnate, or you're just dumb because of this and that, because you're whatever, using words we shouldn't use like tard, but using other parts before that part. All this stuff is ridiculous. You got maybe 80 to 100 years, if you're lucky, on this planet. And waste your time with that, instead of being kind to one another. That's my 2 cents. And I know that's not the only thing to take away from these books. That's the thing that sticks out to me the most, though, out of this, just for me. And that striving for better is good, but if you have the expectation of utopia, you will be disappointed. It will never happen. But we can work to improve. And that requires, regardless of what aisle you stand on and whatever sort of point of view, from religious to politics to I like pizza, more than lasagna. I don't know, whatever the case it may be. Guess what? Someone else is not going to agree with you, and that's okay. You don't have to be friends with everyone, but you should also try to understand someone else before you just quickly label them off as something else. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I've been in this video for way too long. But I hope I've illustrated in my non-professional way as I labor on and on and on with my no editing and my no special fancy camera, my no special fancy microphone, but just me spilling out my blabber, that you got something out of it, from my perspective at least, on this book. There's a lot of other perspectives you can listen to. You can listen to the man himself on Joanna Reed's channel as they discuss this book. This is my little perspective on my little corner of the earth. And I hope you enjoyed listening to it. I hope you enjoyed reading the book. If you didn't read the book, what are you doing? Why are you listening to me? You dummy, go read it. But it was phenomenal. Where is it? Thank you so much, Philip. I love this book. Honestly, truly, honestly, I haven't read every book in the universe. I still have so much to read. But as of now, of my relative time period until I read more and make more of a perspective on it, I'm putting this in like my top 10 books of all time. Until I read more, and it might get usurped. I won't lie. I haven't read everything. This might be beaten by another book. I don't know. But as of 24 years so far, I'm going to put this up there. Probably like a top 10, top 20. Pretty solid. I love this book. I love it. I love it. I love it. First two I liked. I enjoyed a lot, but I loved this one. And it makes me really pumped for book 4, which I'm excited to read. And again, I just want to say thank you, Philip, for being so kind as to give me these. It means the world to me. It's really kind of you. I'm glad that when I have a shelf, I kind of just have boxes right now, but when I have a shelf, I am honored to have it in the shelf when I finally have one up and I don't live where I live anymore. But I hope you all go check out Philip Chase's channel. If you don't, what are you doing? You need to. We have Philip Chase right here, the handsome man himself, okay? Go check out this man, okay? Look at him right here. This guy's awesome, okay? He is, he is a medievalist with special interests in Old English, Old Norse, and various mythological traditions. He teaches English composition and literature and runs his YouTube channel Philip Chase, or Philip Chase, the best of fantasy, dedicated to the exploration of the fantasy genre. Please do visit him. And you can also find him puttering around on Twitter as Philip Chase 90. And if you'd like to hear from me occasionally about writing updates, he has a website, philipchaseauthor.com, okay, which you should be checking out so you can get updates on the next book as it's releasing, or go follow him on Instagram, where you can also get updates possibly on the books he's going to be releasing, which you should do, and you should subscribe to him. If you haven't, then you, sir, are Arkenwald. No, that's too far. It's too far. Woman, male, whatever. You're not Arkenwald. That's too far. But you would be better. I'm just kidding. But honestly, if you're not subscribed to Philip Chase, you're doing it wrong. Please go fix that. And I don't know when I'll see you all again. I guess when the next book comes out, which I may upload before these come out, which will be really funny. But if so, I look forward to that. And if I can find a time where it's like this, where there's no noise whatsoever, I would love to talk to Philip Chase about these books. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. That may not happen. Not promising nothing. But if I can find a quiet time, I absolutely would love to. But regardless of all of that, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Philip Chase, for making this book. And thank you all for being here. I know I kind of spiel and say random garbage. And I appreciate those who stick around. And I love you all. Appreciate you all. And I will see you with whatever next we discuss. Till then, I don't know. I don't know how to end it. You know, because I love Dayraven and he passed away in this book and I can't give him a hug, go to someone you love, give him a nice big hug. I think that's a solid way to end it, okay? Okay, it's not really related to any theme or anything, but I don't have an outro, so we're going to go with that. Give someone you love a big hug, okay? Awesome. Till next time, everyone. Have a good one.